right, good morning. We're ready to call the board meeting to order. It is 10:10 on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Good morning, everyone. Chairman Gaines.
Here.
Vice Chair Lieber. Here. Member Vasquez.
Present.
Member Schaefer.
Present.
Controller Cohen.
Present. Good morning.
Quorum is present and the board meeting is called to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mike, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good, thank you. And Ms. Cicchetti, would you, well, first of all, are there opening comments that anybody would like to make before we get started? Yes. Member Vasquez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It sounds like we're getting a little bit of an echo here.
A little feedback, yeah.
Some feedback.
I agree.
So I don't know if I should put this further away, maybe. All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I know we have a full agenda today, but I'd like to acknowledge a few important observances happening this month. First, looking back at Mother's Day this month, I want to take the opportunity to salute and thank all mothers, including those who go above and beyond serving as a mother figure. The value of their unconditional love and care cannot be overestimated. Related to that, May is the National Foster Care Awareness Month. So I'd like to recognize and honor the outstanding efforts of foster parents, the volunteers, child care professionals, and community members who consistently work to improve the lives of these vulnerable children. I also want to recognize Asian American Pacific Islanders Heritage Month, celebrated annually in May to honor the contributions, resilience, and rich culture heritage of the AAPI communities across California and the nation. My district, Los Angeles County, is home to nearly 1.5 million AAP residents, the largest AAP population of any U.S. county. Lastly, recognize the Armed Forces Day and May 17th, as well as Memorial Day that just took place this past Monday. I want to honor the men and women in uniform and their families who endure sacrifices from their selfish dedication to protect our nation. Los Angeles County has over 127,000 active military personnel, as well as thousands of reserves and 281,000 veterans. We all know, we all owe them a great, huge, especially gratitude for their service and in many cases, their lives that they sacrifice for our freedom. So to me, those I think are our true heroes, and I want to thank each and every one of them for their courage and their service. With that, I'll turn it back over to our chair.
Great, thank you very much. Member Vice Chair Lieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Gaines, to my colleagues, as well our constituents and my fellow Californians, today as we gather to exercise our constitutional responsibility to set values for our state-assessed properties, I am drawn again to the importance of state revenues in sustaining our schools and our local governments. Sustaining these critical revenues is even more important in today's environment of unprecedented cuts to federal support for vital public services. We need to reflect on some of the federal actions and their impact on California. Since last month, these federal actions include the closure of 2 offices of the National Weather Service that serve our Central Valley, one of the engines of our California economy. The Sacramento and Hanford office will no longer be providing their 24-hour services. The U.S. Department of Justice just canceled $80 million in grants to violence prevention and victim services in California, including ones to protect survivors of domestic violence and end sexual abuse in jails and prisons. The majority of grants for these programs were in Los Angeles, Oakland, and San Francisco. Over 700 Sacramento-based AmeriCorps volunteers have lost their jobs, according to data provided by the Governor's Office of California Volunteers. The Sacramento-based Youth and Mentorship Program, Improve Your Tomorrow, that serves more than 16,000 youth and family members, just lost $10 million in federal funding. The Secretary of Transportation federally has terminated $12 million in grant funding for UC Davis's National Center for Sustainable Transportation. Other grant terminations include $9 million for the University of Southern California Pacific Southwest Region Transportation Center, and $6 million for the San Jose State University Mineta Consortium. The Department of Transportation alleged that these programs would be, quote, used to advance a radical DEI and green agenda. The Environmental Protection Agency, since our last meeting, has canceled 800 environmental justice awards. In California, one of these programs would have provided $20 million to improve water systems in the Central Coast communities of Pajaro, Sunny Mesa, and Springfield that each have contaminated wells. The federal government canceled over $30 million in grant funding for seismic retrofits in California that were part of the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program. These are but an example of the thrust of our federal government into our state of California. Right now, there are decisions being made in Congress on a new federal budget that could significantly impact our state's ability to provide basic services, including needed health services for children, seniors, and people living with disabilities. We will stay alert and vigilant as we continue to reassess our ability to provide revenues to sustain critical services for all Californians, especially for the most vulnerable. And we will not give up on our status as a world state within California, but also exercising an influence around the globe. And we will continue to protect our culture in California and our families in California. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair. Other member comments? Yeah, Controller Cohen.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all. It's good to be in the chamber. I just wanted to take a moment and just acknowledge the graduates from the class of 2025. Many of you probably have some in your family. And I know I've been attending graduations. It's that time of the season. I just wanted to offer congratulations not only to the graduates as they hit this major milestone and transition into the cold, cruel world of adulthood. But also if there are any parents, godparents, aunts, uncles, or any other family members that are in this audience that helped get young people to that point. I just wanted to acknowledge that Herculean feat. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Controller. Member Schaefer, would you like to make comments?
Thank you. I always have a birthday greeting, and today is the 81st birthday of Gladys Knight, the entertainer. I met her up in Reno one time at Gladys Knight in the Pips and have enjoyed her career. I'd also like to mention this is such a patriotic month for us with Memorial Day just Monday. I'm very proud to say that last week I had dinner at a public event with 2 Medal of Honor winners. There are 3 of them in San Diego, and 2 of them showed up for a patriotic dinner for combat veterans, and it's such an honor to meet people that have given their all and still survive, to make America great. San Diego is quite a patriotic community of our state, and it goes with all of us in public life wherever we travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Schaefer. I'd like to just take a moment to honor, express joy, and also express sadness. First of all, we want to honor those who gave their lives, and we did that with Memorial Day, which emerged after the Civil War to honor fallen soldiers, aiming to heal a fractured America through shared remembrance. It reflects the profound grief of families who have lost loved ones in war, a pain that transcends time and grievances that once tore our nation apart. Soldiers often serve in peace, but the specter of horrible combat is always hanging overhead, coming anytime, anywhere. From bone-chilling winters at Valley Forge, fighting for the birth of a free nation, or the sweltering jungles in Vietnam, trying to contain the communist menace, or like my father, braving gunfire and flak in the skies above Europe as he helped put an end to the Nazi scourge. American servicemen and women enlist knowing that they may sacrifice their lives for America, the greatest nation on earth, yet they serve willingly. They answer the call. The U.S. military is best trained and best equipped, but it owes a special strength to the courage and character of its men and women. Their bravery makes our forces the envy of the world. Over the centuries, many have died in righteous battles. I am saddened by their loss, but inspired by their heroism. On Memorial Day, we honor their sacrifice. God bless the men and women of the United States military who gave their lives and those who defend it today in defending this great country, ensuring its unmatched values that stand now and forever. And on the point of joy, I want to thank you, Controller Cohen, because our youngest daughter graduated from college, so that was a very joyful moment. That's 37 years of raising children, so we're looking forward to that. And she's moving and she's facing reality. It's like, it's time to get a job. So, but a very exciting moment. And then I wanted to recognize Bill Cardozo on my staff. It's his birthday today, and so I hope he has a great celebration. And concluding in a moment of sadness, the tragic event of Yaron Lachinsky and Sarah Milgram, a young couple who worked at the Israeli embassy and were murdered outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on May 21st, 2025. And the couple were planning to get engaged and were shot by a suspect who was quickly apprehended. And, the purpose of the gathering was to talk about peace in regions throughout the world where there's conflict. And my hope and prayers would be that we settle issues through debate. And we're known for that in America, but there are times when people do things that are just unexplainable. And so I think it's important that we focus on the issues, try to solve them, and that we're careful with our rhetoric. And thank you for that opportunity, and I'd like to go ahead and now move forward with our meeting. And Ms. Cicchetti, could you please call the first order of business?
Good morning, everyone, again. Our first order of business is our safety and informational announcements. Welcome to the Mele State Office Complex. Our safety announcement. In the auditorium, the exits are in the front and on each side of the stage. The other exits are at the rear. Please take a moment to find the exit sign and location closest to you in the event of an emergency. The emergency exits behind and to the side of the stage should only be used in case of an emergency. The informational announcement. I want to remind the audience to silence their cell phones and any other wireless devices. This meeting will be live streamed to the public and posted on the BOE website. Therefore, we ask that all speakers in the auditorium and on the AT&T telephone line or on the teleconference to state their names clearly and speak before speaking for the record. Note that public comments are taken after each agenda item. The public will be invited to comment on matters before the board. If there are any members of the public wishing to speak before the board on any agenda item in person, we ask that you complete and submit to the Sergeant of Arms a public comment appearance sheet located at the entrance of the auditorium. If you wish to speak before the board by telephone, please dial the phone number and access code provided on the public agenda notice and follow the instructions of the AT&T moderator. If you intend to make a public comment today using the AT&T moderator, we recommend dialing into the meeting on the teleconference line before the beginning of the agenda item you wish to comment. We recommend this as the audio broadcast on our website experiences a 1 to 3 minute delay between the live stream and the live event. When giving public comments, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. This concludes the safety and informational announcements. Thank you.
Great, thank you. First item of the day is item number 1, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Persons who wish to address the Board of Equalization regarding items not on the agenda may do so under this item. Please note that the board cannot act on items not on the agenda. However, the board can schedule issues raised by the public for consideration in future meetings. When giving your public comment, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We do not have any written comments for this item or anyone in the auditorium. Is that accurate? Okay. Who wishes to make a public comment on this agenda item? Therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone is on the telephone line and would like to make a public comment regarding this item on the agenda.
Thank you. If you'd like to make a comment, please press 1 then 0 at this time. And at this time, there's no one in queue for comment.
Great, thank you, moderator. Hearing no comments, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That's item number 2, and we're ready for an annual board photograph. And I imagine we probably need to clear the desk off, right?
That's correct, yeah. I just want to, for the audience watching our live stream, the microphones will be silenced during this agenda item.
The board sets unitary values of state-assessed properties annually on or before May 31st pursuant to constitutional and statutory law. Item 3 is a constitutional function. Contribution disclosure forms are not required pursuant to Government Code 15626. This item will be presented by Mr. McCool, Ms. Cruz, and Ms. Williams. Before we begin Mr. McCool's presentation, board members, is there any specific company or companies in any industries that anyone wishes to take up separately? Okay, I believe it's just me. So, for the record, we list the company's name. They'll be taken up separately, and then ask Mr. McCool to proceed. So I will ask for your help here, Mr. McCool, as I recuse myself from Railroad Industry, SBE 804 BNSF, Gas and Electric Industry, SBE 106 Pacific Corp., Gas and Electric Industry, SBE 146 Sierra Pacific Power, Gas and Electric Industry, SBE 188 Kern River Gas. Mr. McCool will give a brief review of value setting process, and his staff will make presentations for each industry value setting. Thank you, Mr. McCool, for making your presentation here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And good morning, Chairman Gaines and honorable members of the board. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. With me today are Michelle Cruz, Manager of our Unitary Valuation and Auditing Section, as well as Tara Williams, Supervisor in our Unitary Valuation and Auditing Section. We are here to present the annual unitary value setting for the board's consideration. Chairman Gaines, before I begin, I would like to take a moment to personally thank the entire State Assessed Properties Division staff for their hard work and dedication. We're fortunate enough to have some members of my team here in the audience with us today. All of our units have been working at full capacity to complete their work during the busy season, and I want to tell the staff that their hard work and long hours are very much appreciated. Members, the item before you today is the annual unitary value setting. As you know, this is one of BOE's core functions. Before we begin with the value setting, I would like to take a moment to provide a brief overview of the process and provide the public with some context on what value setting is. California's state constitution grants BOE the responsibility to assess property owned or used by certain public utilities, regulated railroads, and other specified companies operating in California, enabling counties to use those values to collect local property tax. Property values on the state assessed roll are allocated by the BOE to the counties where the properties are located. Each county collects taxes based upon the allocated values. To meet this responsibility, the State Assessed Properties Division has 3 primary steps to complete in the process. The first, which is before the board this morning, is to determine the total value of each state assessee's unitary property. Unitary property is property used in the primary function of a state assessee. In contrast, non-unitary property is property owned by the assessee, but not used in the assessee's primary function, most often vacant land that an assessee no longer has a use for. Both the unitary and non-unitary property of state assessee is subject to board assessment. Non-unitary values are not part of today's agenda item, but instead will be part of the final roll. After the board adopts each company's total unitary value today, SAPD will begin working on the second step in the process, which is to determine how much of each company's total unitary value should be allocated to each county. Work on allocation will be completed in mid-June. The final step in the process is to present the board roll of state assessed property to the board for adoption at the July meeting. The final roll will include today's unitary values allocated to each county, any adjustments to a company's value due to previous board actions such as appeals, audits, and land escaped assessments. The final roll in July will also include all non-unitary values. Today's unitary value setting is the culmination of several months of work by SAPD staff to determine the fair market value of each state assessee's unitary property. Value indicators and a staff recommended value have been determined for each state assessee, and those have gone through several levels of review. Once the unitary values have been completed and fully reviewed, SAPD staff prepare and then transmit to each board member a detailed binder containing appraisal data reports for each state assessee, as well as several spreadsheets summarizing the current year's values and how those values compare to last year's values. We also provide a summary for why certain value indicators are typically used for each industry group. Additionally, and separate from the appraisal data report binder, SAPD creates a unitary value setting workbook which lists each state assessee and their 2025 recommended value by industry group. It is important for the public to understand that the material SAPD provides to the board for the members to use in their analysis of the unitary values and the staff recommended values themselves are considered confidential under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 833 and Government Code Section 15619. As a result, the staff recommended unitary values are not made public prior to adoption of the values, and staff will be limited in what we can discuss if any of the members ask questions. This year's unitary values are 8.4% higher than last year's unitary values after adjusting for the results of last year's appeals. This is somewhat higher, but consistent with increases we have seen in recent years. As a matter of fact, last year's values were 6.2% higher than the previous year. In the 2 years before that, we saw unitary values 7.3% and 7.5% higher than previous years. The gas and electric industry is by far the largest industry group, accounting for over 74% of the total unitary value. This year, the gas and electric industry as a group increased by about 10% overall compared to last year. We saw about a 7% increase last year for this industry and about 8% increase the year before that. This industry continues to see increased growth due to significant amounts of new property being added. Most of these utilities are replacing older property that is severely depreciated with new property that has experienced little to no depreciation yet. In addition, the large investor-owned utilities continue to spend significantly on improving the durability of their systems against the risk of wildfires. From our discussions with representatives from these companies, these trends are expected to continue in coming years. The overall 8.4% increase in this year's unitary value can be directly attributed to the large-scale investments in new property by the largest utilities. In fact, the 4 largest utilities by themselves make up over 70% of the entire state-assessed unitary value total. A few quick notes on the other industries. Unitary values for the pipeline industry as a whole increased about 5% this year as we continue to see increased throughputs being reported by most companies. The railroad industry unitary values have been increasing the last few years, driven largely by strong demand from shipping. Overall, the industry's total unitary value increased by about 5%. There has been a lot of news regarding tariffs. This year's values are based on company reporting as of January 1st, so we will have to see next year if shipping is impacted by any potential changes in trade volumes. So that will be something we will be monitoring. The electric generation industry was about 5% higher this year. Most of the change can be attributed to power plants that signed new contracts to provide power. Values for the power plants tend to decrease as the term of their new contracts to provide power draw down. So when a facility is able to sign a new contract, that extends the expected future income stream, resulting in increasing values, which largely explains this year's increase. California continues to have a growing demand for electricity, so it is reasonable to expect values for the electric generation industry to continue to increase. That brings us to our telecommunications industries. The 3 sub-telecom categories continue to be a mixed bag. Local telephone values continue to decrease, this year by about 4.5%, which follows the trend in this industry as more and more customers move away from landlines. Wireless values were virtually the same as last year, reflecting an industry that has consolidated around a few main carriers. And finally, the inter-exchange industry was up about 7.5%, reflecting that this sector is still very competitive and continues to see increased investments in fiber networks. In closing, there are 322 state assessees this year with a unitary value. Once the board sets the unitary values, SAPD will mail a notice of unitary value to each state assessee, which will report the value adopted by the board, as well as information on how to file an appeal. Members, if there are no questions, we can begin with this year's value setting.
Thank you, Mr. McCool. Any questions? Yeah, Member Vasquez.
Thank you, Mr. McCool. Just a quick question before you get into the rest of the presentations. You mentioned in your opening remarks, you kind of touched on it, that these last years, I guess, a few years here, we're seeing an increase, kind of looks like somewhat of a spike. And it looks like it's mostly coming from PG&E and Edison, to the tune of, I guess, about 9%, if not more, which equates to about, $12 billion or something in that neighborhood. What do you think is the contributing factor in that?
As mentioned, the three, you could even go to four largest utilities make up over 70% of the total unitary values. And most of those, so the large investor-owned utilities continue to spend significantly on upgrading their systems, partially for wildfire, but also partially due to the age of their systems in general. When you look at the size of the service territories, the amount of property required to provide the level of service that they do, we're just talking about very large numbers. So as they continue to replace, 50-plus-year-old systems with new systems, those severely depreciated assets aren't worth nearly as much as the new property that they're adding to their systems. So we are expecting that 6 to 8% increase in the next handful of years at least, based on the conversations we've had with those representatives.
And as I'm thinking now, with the recent fires, especially in the Palisades, I know Edison's looking to put a lot of their power lines, especially on PCH, underground, which is going to be a huge cost. I'm assuming, and that's going to take a huge spike as well.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we do see in disaster areas where some of the counties may be negatively impacted those calamities. From the state assessed perspective, what we tend to see is the destroyed property in a wildfire from our state assessees is usually fairly old, and then it's replaced with something that's brand new. So since we don't have those Prop 13 protections, it's market value each year, January 1. So you actually have a situation where destroyed property from a wildfire can actually increase the state assessee's unitary value because it's going to be replaced with something that's new and typically valued higher.
And then just the last question here is more moving forward. I see that there was, I guess, like a 25% penalties specifically added to some of these assessments because of the fourth year for failing to file.
Correct. So
what can we do to incentivize that a little bit?
We have multiple contact points through our process, so they will receive their first notification as early as November, informing them of the deadline to file and the various ways that they can submit their annual filing. They'll also receive a letter in December with their property statement itself, and then they have an opportunity to file an extension request, which we grant for the overwhelming majority of our state assessees. And then once the deadline passes, we actually go through the entire list of assessees that have not filed, and we'll make an attempt to contact them. So we'll do that via email. If we have an email available, we'll send a letter, and we'll also attempt to call them. So we make every attempt possible to inform them of their deadline beforehand, and we do reach out to them after they've missed the deadline as well.
Thank you.
All right, members, any other questions? I just had one in terms of inflation. To what degree does inflation play a role in valuation?
I think we saw more of the impacts on inflation the last 2 assessment years. I don't believe we really saw as much this year. We saw a lot of it, especially in the telecommunications industry. They turn over their equipment much quicker. And I think we saw a lot of those impacts last year and the year before that. Not as much this year.
Okay, very well, good, thank you, appreciate that. And I think are we now moving to Ms. Cruz? Great. Yeah, if you could begin your evaluation presentation, that'd be great.
Chairman Gaines and honorable members, SAPD will now present the 2025 unitary values for your consideration. We will introduce each of the 5 industry groups in the following order: pipelines, electric generation, telecommunications, railroads, gas and electric. We will read the name of each industry group one at a time and ask the board to adopt staff's recommended values. After the board completes its vote for the first industry, we will introduce the next industry and will continue with the pattern until the board has taken action on all industries and assessees. If any member requests to not participate on a particular assessee, we will make note of that and ask the participating member for a vote of those assessees after we have finished the vote for the rest of that particular industry. Chairman Gaines has indicated that he will not be participating in the vote for 4 companies, which we will note when the applicable industries are introduced. Chairman Gaines, if you're ready, we can introduce the first industry group.
Wonderful, yes, let's please do that. And this is Ms. Williams coming forward. Thank you.
Hello. Okay, the first industry group is the pipeline industry. Chairman Gaines and honorable members, I ask for your adoption of staff recommended values for the pipeline industry.
Okay, so do we have a motion? So moved. And do we have a second? Okay, great. Let's see, this is an opportunity now for public comment for pipeline industry valuations. I don't believe we have any written comments. Anybody in the auditorium who wishes to make a public comment on this agenda item? I don't see anyone, so therefore let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone on the line would like to make a public comment.
Thank you. If you want to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0 at this time. And at this time, there's no one in queue.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Members, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, before we just take that vote, I was wondering if staff could give us a little bit more context around their recommendation.
Sure, yes.
Just want to understand a little bit better the recommendation. You're making a request for a yes vote. Tell me why. Understanding that there are constitutional limitations on what you can share. Just think that there needs to be a little bit more discussion around this for members of the public that are watching.
So the recommendations that we're providing to the board represent a total unitary value appraisal that we have determined for each of the 322 assessees. They have sent in an annual filing containing multiple financial statements. In most cases, our appraisers are in contact with a representative with the company. We can ask questions. We can request additional information. We will use applicable appraisal methodologies to determine, in most cases, more than one value indicator. Based upon the quality and quantity of the information from each appraisal methodology, we will tend to choose maybe 1, perhaps 2 value indicators to pursue that we think are the most appropriate measure of an assessee's property tax value. We will review that internally. Usually at least 3 or 4 individuals will review that. Each level review goes through an increasing level of experience from the reviewer's standpoint. And we're using that professional appraisal judgment and experience in determining the total unitary value for each assessee. Most of the large state assessees will request a copy of their work papers for them to review. So once we've completed our work, usually first week or so of May, we start transitioning. We're usually still reviewing the last ones coming in, but we've completed many. And we will get requests from assessee representatives to review the work papers. It's an opportunity for them to find errors or ask questions of us.
I have a follow-up question. So you begin this evaluation process during the first week of May? Did I hear that correctly?
So our annual filings are due March 1st. We will have filings come in usually mid-February. So our team starts working usually mid to late February is when things start picking up. And then in earnest, because of the extension request, mid-March onward through March, April, and the beginning of May is crunch time. We have overtime and so on, but it's all hands on deck trying to get all the values completed in time so that we can compile the materials and give the members an opportunity to have
To review and to vote.
some time to review.
Question. All right. I do have a question, though. Now, this is not your typical question, but I
Okay.
was wondering, the governor presents a May revised budget in May. As you know, that kind of sets the tone for the legislative process, for the budgetary process to begin. I'm wondering, does this information, do these numbers inform the Department of Finance in any way on what revenue we are expecting?
I don't believe so. And the reason being is that the revenue collected in this overall process does remain at the local level. So we are responsible for the assessment portion of the state assessment process. These values will be transmitted to the assessees in mid-June. Once we've completed our allocation, they'll have a chance to review how we've allocated the total values. And then we will be coming back in July and asking the board to consider our final assessment roll, which is today's values fully allocated, in addition to any adjustments that have been adopted by the board in the last several months, and our non-unitary property. Once the board has adopted the assessment roll, we transmit to the county auditors. County auditors will use the assessed values, apply tax rates, and then so on and so forth. They send the bill, collect the revenue.
Thank you very much for laying out the life cycle of our process. Is
Sure.
actually a very small little snippet in the larger context. So we have now determined that the state doesn't necessarily touch these dollars,
Sure.
but the counties do,
Yes.
right? I understand that.
Yes.
And so I'm curious, I have heard companies come and protest or be in disagreement with our assessment. But have county auditors or county boards of supervisors, has anyone on the county level ever said, or had a protest on the valuation process? Perhaps it was your formula or something that you took into consideration on the worksheet?
Sure. I'm not aware of any protest.
Okay.
Our county partners are involved in the process, obviously, and we do receive a lot of questions and feedback, especially from the county auditor's offices. When they look at the granular detail and they see a large increase or decrease, they will reach out to us and ask us questions. We're almost always able to determine the reason for the increase or decrease. They typically would like to know two things. One, is this correct? And two, will we see this in the future, whether it's an increase or a decrease?
Yes, I can imagine them being very
Yes.
meticulous about those
Yes.
details because we're messing with their money.
Sometimes the questions received from the county auditor's offices are actually questions relayed from special districts, for example, or in some cases, school districts, because these dollars do trickle down to schools and special districts.
And when we say special districts, an example of that would be like a fire district?
Fire district, library district, mosquito abatement, tens of thousands of special districts, as you all know. These valuations will eventually become local revenue for those special districts. And to the extent that values increase or decrease, even within a specific tax rate area, I can remember a call many years ago where a change in value, which after review, everything was done correctly. It was a decrease in value in a particular tax rate area, and then there was a special district inquiring why, because it was going to result in layoffs of 3 staff, I believe it was. So we do realize that there are a lot of eyeballs on this. We do have an annual meeting with county councils representing the counties, and we meet with them, and they go over especially the larger companies, knowing how significant they are on the overall assessment role. So we do meet with them on an annual basis as well.
So I'm curious, we all know the precarious state our state is in terms of our budget, and that will have an adverse effect on our cities and our counties. So I'm sure that they're paying attention to the work that we're doing here today.
Absolutely.
And moving forward. Have there been any auditors, or have there been any legal counsel, or anyone made any kind of a protest or has asked any questions of staff at all during this process? Acknowledging that this process is not complete,
Yes.
but
We receive lots of questions. I cannot think of a time in my, seems like very long time here now, where we've had protests from the counties. There are a handful of counties that I'm in close communication to, regular basis on certain things that are going to impact their revenue stream. And they like to know as soon as possible in the year where things stand for the current year. So there are a handful of those situations where individual portions of assessments, not even a company's, but a portion of that's specific to a county does receive extra attention. And we do provide the counties with a preliminary role that they'll receive in June. The idea behind that is they get to see the numbers as a preliminary before the board makes the final adoption in July for their budgetary purposes. But there are a handful of counties that will reach out very early and ask some of these questions.
Member Vasquez, I would imagine that this would be important, particularly for your county, LA County, facing severe budget deficit. And Member Sally Lieber, your county, when I think about Santa Clara, one of the wealthier counties, and Larry Stone and his work, I mean, he's usually incredibly meticulous when it comes to just paying attention to the revenue. This is a huge revenue stream for these counties, and they are in dire shape. Thank you, Mr. McCool, for stepping up and answering these questions. I know you are like a beast on these numbers. Ms. Williams, I disrespected your flow, I'm sorry. But these were just, I do not want us to short shrift the seriousness of the work that we're doing. I don't want this to be just to the public as just a simple rubber stamping and then we're moving forward and that we are not paying attention and asking these critical questions, because in the end, these votes are gonna have an impact on the bottom line, that are gonna have an impact on our friends and our family that are living in all these different counties in our great state. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Thank you for asking those questions. I was just thinking, if you take a look at the utilities, the 4 utilities had 40% of the spending. So if that's happening in your county, then that's helping out a lot of these state agencies in terms of funding. But they've got to look out in the future too, because typically they're depreciating assets too, right? So they ebb and flow. Interesting. Very well. Ms. Williams, please, sorry to interrupt. Do you have any additional comments here?
Mr. Gaines, I believe we have a motion
Oh, that's right.
on the table.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Very good. All right, so we've had our discussion. Member Vasquez has made a motion to approve staff recommended valuations for the pipeline industry, and Controller Cohen has seconded that. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Chairman Gaines,
Aye?
Vice Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
Wonderful. The motion passes. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to the second industry, and that is electric generation. And want to thank Ms. Williams for bringing this forward.
Thank you. Our next industry group is the electric generation industry. I ask for your adoption of staff's recommended values for the electric generation industry.
Okay. Members, do we have any questions? Okay, I think we presented a good understanding of the valuation that I think is helpful to our constituents and to ourselves too. You always learn something, don't you? And do we have a motion regarding electric generation valuations?
So moved.
Okay, so we got Do we have a second? Okay. Good. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Public comment for electric generation industry valuations. We don't have any written comments or anyone in the auditorium that I'm seeing, okay. Who wishes to make a public comment. Therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone on the line would like to make a public comment.
Thank you. And if you have a public comment, please press 1, then 0. And at this time, there is no one in queue.
Okay, thank you, moderator. Members, any further discussion? Seeing none, Member Vasquez has made a motion to approve staff recommended valuations for the electric generation industry, with Member Schaefer seconding. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
All right. Chairman Gaines,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer,
Aye.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you, members. All right, we're going to now move to telecommunications. And Ms. Williams, can you please make your presentation?
Our next industry group is telecommunications. I ask for the board's adoption of the staff's recommended values for the telecommunications industry.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Before we make a motion, I do have some questions that
Sure.
I think
Controller
Mr. McCool is poised to answer. So, Mr. McCool, here we are, we're talking now about telecommunications, and maybe you can just talk overall how we've got 5 different types of industries that we are performing an evaluation of their unitary value. Can you talk to me about how the telecommunication companies affect local, county, special districts, or the state's budget?
Sure. Some of the larger traditional local telephone companies, Pac Bell type, have sizable values. There are 3 large cellular wireless companies that have fairly large values. And there's a handful of what we call our inter-exchange companies, do a lot of fiber optic type of thing. The telecommunications industry, from a total number of our 322 assessees, is probably 70% of the companies. But as a percentage of our total unitary value, it's maybe about 15% of the total. So there's significantly less impact on the overall role from when we see increases or decreases in the telecommunication industries. And as I mentioned in the summary, what we're seeing from the local telephone companies, there's just a loss of business over time. And then they're trying to modernize and get into different segments. But from kind of the same point of the large investor on electric utilities, those larger landline companies are moving away from old property, and they're able to add new property. But we just don't see the magnitude that we do from our gas and electric industry. So I think the effect from a local standpoint is much less.
Okay. What are they, when you said that they're moving from the old to the new and
Yeah.
acquiring new assets, what are they doing with the old assets?
Disposing of them,
And that means selling of them?
yes.
Back on the markets?
Selling,
with-
scrapping,
Scrapping, selling. So here's the question in terms of unitary value.
yes.
Are they making a profit on what they're selling?
I think generally speaking, the profits are not, if there are profits, are not coming from selling old
Okay.
property.
So the profits possibly are coming from where? I just want to make sure
Just the
that.
business aspects.
Okay. And again, this is just for the public.
Sure.
An exercise, a conversation that we're having because this is our constitutional, well, this is my constitutional function, but this is all of our job in the end. And I want to make sure that we are connecting the dots about what we do here and how it relates to everyday people, right? So we've got telecommunication companies that own huge swaths of land and property that we are assessing to tax them,
Yeah.
for them to pay.
Yes.
And as technology advances, and you think about AI,
Yes.
thing, they're acquiring new assets and unloading their
Yes.
old assets. And my question was, how are they unloading them? How does that affect our unitary value process in any way? And the answer I'm hearing from you is, no, it doesn't affect it.
Right.
And that there are dollars that do go to the local level,
Yes.
but it's not as impactful as the electric
Yes.
generation facilities.
Yes. And I think it's important to note, so when we lump telecommunications, we do have three subgroups. So,
true.
as I mentioned earlier, the local telephone industry as a whole, we've seen 2 to 4% decreases generally over the last few years. The wireless industry has experienced a lot of consolidation from many carriers around a handful. There's 3 main large carriers. There's still a handful of others.
Remember Cellular One? Some of you are old enough to remember Cellular One in this room, yes.
Do we still have one?
You still have one? Shame on you.
No. I just, as a company, that we're not seeing much growth or change in value with the wireless industry. And a lot of the conversation with the wireless industry is the limited amount of spectrum available for them to grow their business. And that is largely out of their control. So from those conversations we have with those assessees, that consolidation has happened, and we're not expecting much change in the short term at least. The growth portion of our telecommunication industry is those, we have so many inter-exchange companies. I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 130 of our 322 are inter-exchange companies, and they're doing a lot of the fiber optic networks. So they still have a lot of those that are building out. We have a handful of common issues that are coming up, and that we'll probably see some of in our appeal season related to those build-outs. From an appraisal standpoint, the cost approach tends to be the most reliable, in our opinion, for most of these companies. And reason being is there's so much of a swing up and down year to year from the income side. And a lot of the data is commingled with other state reporting data. So from a California-specific standpoint, it's difficult to get financial information that's segregated to California only. So we tend to rely more on the cost approach for our telecommunications companies. And that is Chairman Gaines mentioned inflation earlier. We saw a lot of value impacts directly to telecommunications companies the last few years because our trend factors were influenced more by inflation in the market, which is where we get our data. So from an appraisal standpoint, we rely more heavily on the cost approach for a lot of these entities. So it is a lot of reporting your assets, us calculating depreciation, making appropriate adjustments, so.
Now, my question is related to tariffs that have been imposed from the federal government, right?
Yeah.
Now, you might not see the results of these tariffs in this year, but probably next year, I would imagine. Can you look into your crystal ball and tell me exactly how these tariffs are going to impact the assessed values for these companies?
No.
No, you can't.
It's hard. I would say there's some industries where I think it's easier.
Okay.
If you look at the railroad industry specifically, so much of their business is tied to the demand for shipping. We saw a great example of that during the COVID years. Shipping fell off a cliff initially, and then it rebounded to historic levels. So that's sort of leveling off. You can speculate as to whether tariffs will potentially, increase, or some would probably say decrease the amount of cargo coming through the ports, and therefore the railroads moving it. So will we see a decrease in shipping?
Possibly,
I don't know.
Yeah.
If we do, we're likely to see the railroad values in particular decline as a group, generally speaking. From other industries, I think it's harder to predict. I don't think the tariff question has as much impact on, for example, gas and electric utilities, which again is where the overwhelming majority of our value on the roll is found.
Interesting. Colleagues, any questions?
Yes,
I give it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you about the fiber. You had mentioned earlier that fiber is up. There's more investment in that area. Can you speak to that? There's a lot of, there's more competition now with
Yes.
satellite, right?
Seeing that? We don't really have the satellite conversations, really.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do we value their assets, or are there assets to value if you've got satellite internet?
We have, I can't think of as many examples now, but in the past, we've had companies that we are assessing that were in that space. And
Okay.
do you recall? I don't recall currently. I don't know. There's a handful of examples that I can think of that we've had historically, but I'm not aware of any current ones. And it's typically, yeah, it would typically just be in addition to the assessed jurisdiction components that we would be covering. If it was a satellite-specific company, that would not fall under jurisdiction. There's a handful of telecom companies I think had some of that, but not the satellite specifically.
Okay, all right, that's great. I know it is. It's a bigger issue in rural areas, right? Because you don't have the wire,
Yes.
because the distances are too far between homes. And so, but what you're seeing is a lot of increased investment in fiber.
We
So
are.
that would be more city and suburban.
I think from the conversations we've been having, we're seeing a lot more attempts to penetrate the rural spaces.
Okay. Oh, that's
You said
encouraging.
attempts to penetrate the rural places.
Rural
Yeah.
communities.
With fiber.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
even in
good.
our own legislature.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pieces of legislation that has been
Yes.
moving since the pandemic. I think that really spurred it, raising the connectivity issue.
Yes, yeah,
If you want to. Go for it.
good.
You can speak.
Ms. Cruz has had a lot of conversations regarding fiber.
Oh, good, thank you.
Hello, it seems to be in the past few years, we've seen a lot more fiber build-outs in the interexchange industry. From my understanding, there's bills being passed here in California to help with build-outs. And so those who would like to join these build-outs are getting grants to help build out in rural areas and things of that nature. So that's why we're seeing the growth, more so the past 2 to 3 years, and we feel that we're going to continue to see the growth in the interexchange industry for fiber.
Wonderful, that's great. Good, thank you.
You're welcome. I have a question. I don't know who wants to take this one, but it has to do with a little bit with mergers and acquisitions. As we see the contraction of different industries, a lot of movement is happening. And particularly in the telecommunication companies, how are mergers and acquisitions affecting the valuation of these companies?
So typically when there's an acquisition or a merger, the assessee comes in with a purchase price allocation, which is their book cost. And then that's a new starting point for the assessee for the acquisitions they've acquired.
Okay. And well, I guess you kind of talked a little bit about what the future of broadband looks like. You said that people are moving in that direction. Have you seen any changes in people, in how technology has moved from people not having home phones into more relying on their cellular phones? Has that manifested on the worksheet for the valuation forms for these companies as well?
Yes, so that speaks to the decrease in the local industry, because those are your landlines, which people are no longer using, and using their wireless cell phones for communication.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready to move ahead, and the suggested motion is approve staff recommended valuations for the telecommunication industry. So do we have a motion
So
for that?
moved.
Okay, so we've got
Second that.
Member Vasquez and Member Schaefer. Excellent, thank you. And public comment for telecommunication industry valuations. We do not have any written comments. Or anyone in the auditorium? Okay, who wishes to speak or make a public comment on this agenda item? Therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone is on the line and would like to make a public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment, please press 1 and then 0. And at this time, there's no one in queue.
All right, thank you, moderator. Members, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Member Vasquez has made a motion to approve staff recommended valuations for the telecommunication industry with member Schaefer seconding. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Chairman Gaines.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lieber.
Aye.
Member Vasquez.
Aye.
Member Schaefer.
Aye.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Okay, now we're going to move on to the fourth industry. And thank you, Ms. Williams. Why don't you make the presentation here?
Okay, thank you. The next industry group is the railroad industry. Chairman Gaines has indicated that he will not participate in the vote for number 804 BNSF Railway Company. Chairman Gaines and honorable members, I ask for your adoption of the staff recommended values for the railroad industry, excluding number 804 BNSF Railway Company.
All right. Members, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so Lieber, all right. Vice Chair Lieber. And, okay, so this is approved staff recommended valuations for the railroad industry and public comment for railroad industry valuations excluding SBE number 804 SNBF Railroad, SNSF Railroad Company. We do not have any written comments or anyone in the auditorium who wishes to make a public comment on this agenda item. Therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone is on the line would like to make a public comment.
If you'd like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0. And at this time, there are no one in queue for a public comment.
Thank you, moderator. Members, any further discussion?
Yes, I do. I have questions. I'm wondering, are
Please.
railroad companies
Control call.
consolidating? No? You're not seeing that? What kind of activity are you seeing? I mean, like, the railroad industry, to me, it seems like technology from yesterday, but yet it still exists. Any indication on what you saw in the paperwork that was submitted from the railroad companies? Any other details that you could share?
Yeah, because I don't know if I would start saying things. Sorry. I'm sorry.
I apologize. So actually, there's a lot of technology in the railroad industry. There's a lot of safety improvements that are undergoing, especially from the major companies. There's a lot of technology related to the locomotives themselves and the ways in which they are powered. So moving away from the less...
The coal,
Yes.
dirty,
Yes.
fossil fuel burning.
There's
yeah.
been a lot of work on like clean diesel and those items. So there is actually quite a lot of innovation going on in the railroad industry. We have 2 large Class 1 railroads in California that do the bulk of the interstate shipping for California. We don't have that many that cross state lines. So from a number standpoint, most of our railroads are what we call short line railroads. So they're short to medium length haul of freight. So some of our very smallest ones are only a few miles long as far as their operations are concerned. We have a handful that operate only within a given port. But generally speaking, those shipping volumes and how much they're able to charge for those shipping rates are 2 of the largest factors for our valuations of the railroad industries.
So California is actually one of the largest, or a very large, exporter of agricultural products. I'm assuming that's why we have all these intricate state connectivities. And I'm wondering how the impact of the transportation of food on rail cars have affected valuation, if at all. So is it less about what they're moving and more or less the movement itself?
I think the what does fluctuate, and I think the what does matter.
Okay.
But generally, the economy as a whole is probably a better indicator than subsectors. So we do have our private railroad car valuation, our private railroad car roll, which you'll have the pleasure of viewing in July as well. So the rail cars that are owned by these state-assessed railroads are not part of that because they're already included in this valuation. So when we talk about the two large railroads, there's chemicals, there's agricultural products, there's automobiles, there's a whole slew of different types of cargo that they're moving around the state and around the country. So
Is there livestock? Are they still moving livestock?
I would imagine that's in there as well. We don't typically get a lot of the specific data about what they're moving, but it's part of the conversations that we have when we work with the representatives, for sure.
Overall, how many people are doing this work? Because this is like when you start to peel back the layers, you ask questions on each one of these individual. I mean, do you have a team of folks that are just looking at telecommunication? Do you have a team of folks that just look at the railroad companies?
Yeah.
Or is it an interdisciplinary approach?
The division is approximately 50.
Okay.
We have a group of about 12 doing our real property valuations, so the land component. We have about 8 or so that are working on our mapping unit to maintain the state's tax rate area system. And then we have 25 or so allocated to our unitary valuation and auditing section. So within that 24 group, we do tend to group our auditor appraisers by an industry group. Each one is led by a senior auditor appraiser, and they are considered an industry lead, and they are the ones that we would consider subject matter experts for the particular industry. So we do try to expose our mid-level staff, for lack of a better way to describe it, to various industries. We do try to have cross-industry training, but we do have individuals who we do consider to be experts in a particular industry.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, great. Thank you. Those are great questions.
Thank you, Jack.
You know, when I was in the legislature, we looked at efficiency of rail versus truck and some of those things, but I was blown away at how much more efficient rail is than trucking. And also from an environmental standpoint, the amount of emissions are so much lower, and they're getting better and better as these new technologies come out. But if you think of, you know, a couple of locomotive engines maybe pulling 80 rail car loads of material, that's pretty amazing. So thank you for that. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, so we have a motion made by Member Vasquez to approve staff recommended valuations for the railroad industry with Vice Chair Lieber seconding. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Just going to clarify the motion to make sure that it's for all of the railroad valuations, excluding the SPE 804 BNSF Railway Company.
That's correct. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, not a problem. Chairman Gaines?
Aye?
Vice Chair Lieber?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Member Schaefer?
Aye.
Controller Cohen?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. The motion passes. Okay, we're ready for our next industry. Ms. Williams.
Our final industry group is the gas and electric industry. Chairman Gaines has indicated that he will not participate in the vote for number 106 Pacific Corp., number 146 Sierra Pacific Power Company, and number 188 Kern River Gas Transmission Company. Chairman Gaines and honorable members, I ask for your adoption of the staff's recommended values for the gas and electric industry, excluding the 3 companies I just named.
Great, great, thank you. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Wonderful. So that would be a motion to approve staff recommended valuations for the gas and electric industry. And that would be excluding SBE number 106, Pacific Corp, SBE number 146, Sierra Pacific Power Company, SBE number 188, Kern River Gas Transmission Company. And we don't have any written comments, and I don't believe there's anybody in the auditorium. Seeing none, we'll then move to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone's on the line would like to make a public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. And sir, there's no one online.
Wonderful. Thank you, moderator. Vice Chair Lieber has made a motion to approve staff recommended valuations for the gas and electric industry, seconded by Member Schaefer. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
I have some questions.
Oh, okay, we've got a motion and we have questions.
We'll just leave it open. I want
Controller,
to
yes.
just to discuss the motion. So recently, a Southern California company was had to pay $82.5 million to settle a claim over a fire in 2020. And I'm wondering if gas and or electric companies, when they settle litigation, and when they settle litigation and they pay a fine to the government, how does that affect their valuation, if at all? This is certainly a common theme.
It typically does not have an effect, because our mission is to value their taxable property in California, so that would be something that would not be property specific.
Have you seen an argument made saying, hey, the value of our property has decreased because of this fire?
I have seen that argument.
You have
yes.
seen that?
Yes.
And has that impacted the valuation of the property?
The argument itself,
Yeah, have they been successful in convincing you and your staff that their property value has decreased? Uh-oh. Now we have the attorney coming. I must have struck a nerve.
Too many questions.
Hello, Richard Moon, Chief Counsel. So in the course of doing state assessment, we are often sued and often have appeals before you with various arguments. One of them that's been coming up, both at appeals, formally, informally, has been the wildfire issue. And SAPD has been in communication with industries and companies that would be affected or potentially affected. And they have sometimes been, I guess, quote unquote, convinced by some of the arguments and made certain adjustments, and other times they have not. So it just really depends on all of the varying facts and circumstances and the particular arguments that are being.
Well, I'm just going to move on because I feel like I hit the jackpot when I got Mr. Moon to the microphone. I was wondering how long he was going to allow me to ask questions. Usually the legal team, Julie included, get a little squirrely when we start to ask questions. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Moon.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, do you have an additional comment on this item? Okay. So I think we're ready to move forward with a vote. Is that right, Ms. Cicchetti?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to accept on the gas and electric industry, the valuations excluding SBE 106 Pacific Corp, SBE 146 Sierra Pacific Power, and SBE 188 Kern River Gas Transmission Company. Vice Chair Lieber made the motion and Mr. Schaefer seconded. Chairman Gaines?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lieber?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Member Schaefer?
Aye.
Controller Cohen?
Aye.
All right, thank you. The motion passes. We have one more step in the value setting process. I will hand the gavel over to Vice Chair Lieber to continue setting the values for the 4 remaining companies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Ms. Cruz, if you would please proceed with the presentation on those items.
Members, the board has taken action on all 5 industry groups. The only remaining companies for the board's consideration are the 4 assessees that Chairman Gaines has indicated he would not participate in their vote. Vice Chair Lieber and honorable members, I ask for your adoption of staff's recommended values for number 106, Pacific Corp., number 146, Sierra Pacific Power Company, number 188, Kern River Gas Transmission Company, and number 804, BNSF Railway Company. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt staff's valuation?
So moved.
Got a motion from Mr. Vasquez. Controller Cohen, would you like to second?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we have no written comments and no one who submitted a comment card. So we'll go to the AT&T moderator. Moderator, if you could please let us know if there's anyone holding on the line who would like to make a comment relative to these 4 companies.
Thank you. And if you have a comment, excuse me, press 1 then 0. And ma'am, there are no questions or comments in queue.
Okay, thank you, and we'll bring it back. And again, this is within the railroad industry grouping, BNSF Railway Company, and within gas and electric companies, Pacific Corp., Sierra Pacific Power Company, and Kern River Gas Transmission Company. And we have a motion from Mr. Vasquez, seconded by the controller, and we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you. Chairman Gaines is not participating. Vice Chair Lieber.
Aye.
Member Vasquez.
Aye.
Member Schaefer.
Aye.
Controller Cohen.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries with 4 in favor and Mr. Gaines not participating. And Mr. McCool, did you want to give some closing remarks to us, or are you all set?
I just thank you all for your questions, and again, thank you to the team for all their hard work during this appraisal season. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to Mr. McCool and Ms. Cruz and Ms. Williams for being here and making a presentation, and all the staff who worked to prepare these valuations for us. Controller Cohen, did you have comments?
Oh, yes, I do. I really wanted to, just like you, Member Lieber, just express how grateful I am. This is one of the highlights of my part of the year. I love this part. I love these types of questions to be able to ask, to reveal to the public. Ms. Cruz and Ms. Williams, you guys did a great job. I appreciate you. I know you guys are doing a lot of heavy work. Reminds me of little ducks. You guys look like you're cool across the surface, but your little feet are pedaling feverishly. Mr. McCool, you and your entire team always do a great job.
Thank you.
Annually. The state assessed a property division. I don't know if there are others here in the chamber today, but I want to acknowledge them, okay?
folks in
We
the
see you guys over there. I hope you enjoyed it and even got something out of this questioning. But your diligent work in preparing the report, making the recommendation, asking these, I know these very tough questions about the appraisals, the reports, the analysis, like everything, makes our job much easier to come in and trust the recommendation that is for us to consider. And year after year, this body's been tasked with completing an important constitutionally mandated responsibility. And really the goal here is to develop and set fair, equal values for the state assessed properties. We want to make sure that people, no one is paying more than their fair share, but we are also want to pay meticulous detail to make sure that those that can pay are paying. And as we review the documents, all the supporting documents supporting the staff recommendation and valuation, I am just reminded that each of these valuations are a result of careful consideration, supported by experience, by expertise, by wisdom, and just really important foundational institutional memory that is a skill and a resource that is undervalued, I think, in state government. People who know how to do their job and know how to do their job well are very important. The assessments generated that we just discussed generate over $2 billion. It's a lot of money. Over $2 billion in local property tax revenues for each of our 58 counties. So it is incumbent upon us to do that due diligence, asking the questions, and making the lawyers uncomfortable. And as the controller, I'm grateful for your work, and I really appreciate your dedication. I think you've done a job well done. I also want to commend my staff that has helped me to be incredibly prepared in this portion of the agenda. So thank you very much, Ms. Stour. My compliments to you as the head of the organization. Thank you, Mr. McCool.
you.
See you in July.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, members, any other comments? Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff too for doing a great job. It's interesting, we come in touch with a lot of assessors, and I had a chance to sit down and talk to Assessor Christina Nguyen in Sacramento County, just to find out how things are going and how are we performing at the BOE. And she spoke highly of your staff, the staff here at the BOE. And so it's such a resource for our 58 county assessors, and really appreciate what you do. This is kind of like, I guess May 31st is kind of like the FTB's April 15th.
Kinda.
Sort of.
Yeah. That's a good,
Lot of work,
that's a
right?
good comparison. It's fair. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. So we will now move on to next item on the agenda. Tax program matters, item number 4, property tax appearance consent for Global Tel Link Corporation. And that's 7988 EAU 24-003. This is a constitutional function presented by Mr. McCool.
Thank you, and good morning again, Chairman Gaines and all members of the board. My name is Jack McCool, Chief of the State Assessed Properties Division. Before you today is a petition for reassessment of unitary value and abatement of penalty related to an audit escaped assessment the board adopted on February 21st of this year. The petitioner appealed certain aspects of the audit findings that were adopted during their 50-day appeal window. SAPD staff and representatives for the petitioner were able to work collaboratively to resolve the issues raised in the petition. The petitioner was cooperative during the process and provided staff with additional information and data that was requested. Petitioner is also requesting abatement of the penalty amount statutorily applied by staff. Global Tel was cooperative through the petition process and has provided staff all the information requested. SAPD has no objection to this abatement request and are in agreement with the petitioner on the recommendation before you. I ask for your adoption of the recommended reassessment of unitary value and penalty abatement request for Global Tel Link Corporation. Thank you.
So, yes.
Thank you very much.
Controller Cohen, please.
Escaped assessments, one of my favorite topics. You know that? It's just an interesting concept. And I want to thank John Fiella, who was my advisor when I was a young BOE member, explaining to me about escaped assessments. It's an interesting concept, right? So can you just tell me in great detail about Global Link? What exactly are they saying? How much are we talking?
How much?
I think,
Am I able to
never mind.
disclose how much?
That's okay, Mr. Moon. Forget my question. Thank you, sir. He answered that for me. What can you tell me that you haven't already told me about item number 4?
I can tell you that the board adopted an audited escaped assessment amount in February of this year. The original unitary value that was adopted in May 25th of 2021. So this meeting 4 years ago, our original value for Global Tel was $7,780,000. I can share that because once adopted, these values become public. The board adopted, so we did an audit, a 4-year audit for Global Tel. We presented that to the board in February of this year. The board adopted our audit findings. As always, we sent the notice that the change has been made by the board and you have 50 days to appeal. Global Tel filed their appeal. There was contention about a discrepancy in assets that were reported on their original property statement versus what we found in the audit. So we did an audit, we found assets that they had reported in their annual filing that during the audit, they said they no longer owned. So we asked for clarifying information, and initially during the audit period, the information provided, staff was not able to determine that the assets in question were the assets included in the information provided. So when we presented our audit findings to the board, those particular assets were included in the escaped assessment amount. And during the appeal period, they provided additional information. Our staff has verified that the assets and the additional information are in fact the ones that staff valued during the audit period. And they were able to prove that those assets were disposed of prior to the 2021 roll year, which is the roll year in question. So it was to our satisfaction that they did not in fact have the assets, which they did themselves report to us. So there was just a discrepancy regarding the reporting versus the actual, and it's taken until we've gotten to this appeal period before we've seen the information that satisfies.
Do appeals usually take 4 years?
So the audit,
audit, I'm
this
sorry.
particular audit was a 4-year audit, 2021 through 2024, that the board adopted this past February. So this particular petition was filed within that following 50-day window. So it's actually been a pretty short period.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of
I don't
course.
have any other question, Mr. Gaines.
Okay, very, yeah, Member Schaefer.
Mr. McCool, what if in your audit you find something from the taxpayer that's not credible and you're concerned about it? And maybe you find that maybe there's a game playing going on here that is inappropriate. Do we just address it civilly, or do we have a relationship with the district attorney, to Attorney General's office to try to make an example of it? I know somewhere in the United States, and frequently, there is games playing going on with public agencies, and I'm so proud to see when government steps in and makes a scene and praises all the people that are doing it right and condemns the very few that do it wrong. Have we ever had an occasion to do that, or we just say tut-tut?
We have not had the occasion to do that in the time that I can recall. We would do our best efforts with the facts presented to us to correctly value the assets. If we were to suspect or perhaps have information to lead us to believe that something beyond our scope was at presence, I would be in contact with our legal department, and I'm sure they would follow up and do the requisite work to inform the authorities. But to answer your specific question, I have not seen, nor has any of our audits revealed anything of that nature.
But we're not ever turning a blind eye. We
No.
are awake. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. McCool. Members, would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
I had
Okay, we have
another
Vice Chair
question.
Lieber.
I had another
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry. Okay.
Mr. McCool, I noticed that contribution disclosure forms are not required pursuant to government code. That deals with contributions of $250 or more. I don't have any contributions from them. But why is it treated differently on item 4 than it would in general?
Good morning again, Richard Moon, Chief Counsel. So this is a non-appearance consent matter, and the contribution disclosure requirements in the COP Act only apply to adjudicatory matters that are pending before the board. And because this is a non-appearance consent, it's not considered subject to that.
All right, thank you. I'm in favor of full disclosure. That's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the petition for reassessment of unitary value and penalty abatement. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. All right. Vice Chair Lieber has made a motion to approve the petition for reassessment of unitary value and penalty abatement with Member Schaefer seconding. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
We need to go out to public comment on this one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not a problem.
Excuse me. Yes. Okay, we do not have any written comments on this item. I don't see anyone in the auditorium who wishes to make a public comment. And therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone is on the telephone line and would like to make a public comment regarding this item on the agenda.
Thank you. If you wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0. Again, that's 1, then 0. And there's no one in queue for the public comment.
Okay, thank you, moderator. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Ready? Chairman Gaines?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lieber?
Aye.
Member Vasquez?
Aye.
Member Schaefer?
Aye.
Controller Cohen?
Aye.
All right, wonderful. The motion passes. Okay, members, we were talking about a 10-minute break.
No, yeah, we're going to pass that. We're very close to lunch time, so let's go to item 5, if that's
Okay, is
good.
everybody okay with that, though? Are we?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if anybody
We'll go
needs a
straight
break?
to lunch after item 5.
Okay, all right. We'll now move on to the consent agenda presented by Ms. Stowers.
Good morning, Chairman Gaines and honorable members. My name is Yvette Stowers, Executive Director. I have before you 5 items on the administrative consent agenda that will be taken up together as one vote. These items include item A, the board meeting minutes from last month, April 29th, 2025. Item B, the board's adoption of the 4R Act equalization ratio for 25-26 fiscal year. Item C, the board's approval to invite county assessors to meet with the board at our annual meeting on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. Item D, acknowledging the following counties have requested an extension to complete their role: Calaveras, Colusa, Lasser, Placer, and Trinity. They made a request and an extension was granted. And finally, item E is a request for the board pursuant to Government Code Section 156 to adopt property tax forms listed on today's agenda, except for the following form: Property Tax Form BOE 571, Agent Authorization. Members, that concludes my report. I'm available. I ask for your adoption of today's consent agenda.
Wonderful. Thank you, Executive Director Stowers. Members, would anybody like to make a motion? Okay, Vice Chair Lieber, and do we have a second?
Well, just before we take, I'll make that second.
Okay.
Mr. Moon, am I able to just read into the record what's on the consent agenda, just in case people don't have it in front of them? Sure. Okay, I just wanted to acknowledge that the consent agenda it's pretty impactful. We've got the adoption of the board minutes, which you mentioned, the 4R Act equalization ratio, the invitation to annual meeting of the Board of Equalization and County Assessors. This is an annual convening that we do. The Executive Director's report on the extension to the completion of the local assessment role, which you also spoke to about the 5 counties, I think it was?
Yes, to 5 counties.
5 counties. And then also, there are some minor edits to various property tax forms.
Yes. Actually, I would say that those forms, 64 forms, those are significant. They're very significant. They reflect the change in law, and it's a reflection of the department property tax, county assessed property, working with the County Assessors Association to develop the forms.
Yes, thank you.
It's a significant task.
Yeah, you did, thank you for definitely calling, and sometimes we can just do a broad sweep and just try to dispense with the business, but the property tax forms, these forms, you said 64 of them, do set the rules. It is how we give opinions, how we provide, how we opine in areas of gray areas, so thank you for calling that.
I skipped through it, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Oh,
but
it's
there-
okay. That's okay. I have no other questions
Okay,
already.
very well. Seeing no further comment, let's seek public comment on item number 5. We don't have any written comments on this item. I don't see anybody in the auditorium that wishes to make a public comment. Therefore, let's go to the AT&T moderator. Please let us know if anyone is on the telephone line would like to make a public comment regarding this item on the agenda.
Thank you. Press 10 if you would like to make a public comment. Again, that is 1, then 0. And at this time, there's no one in queue for public comments.
Great, thank you, moderator. Vice Chair Lieber's made a motion to approve the administrative consent agenda with Controller Cohen seconding. Ms. Cicchetti, please call the roll.
Chairman Gaines,
Aye?
Vice Chair Lieber,
Aye.
Member Vasquez,
Aye.
Member Schaefer, Controller Cohen.
Aye.
The motion passes. Thank you, members.
Right now,
Okay, we're gonna take a
before we
lunch
take
break
up the
now.
next item,
Okay. everybody
because of
okay?
time constraints for our informational hearing later on.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna take a
1
break,
hour.
1 hour break for lunch. Okay, and it is,
Excuse me? Okay.
A
let's
word
get some
about the
questions.
hearing?
yes, please.
If it's opportune.
Yes.
We have, our first speaker is going to be 15 minutes late. We've just been advised. And our second speaker is on his wedding anniversary in Hawaii, so he's eager to get going, but I think we're going to have to wait until 1:15 to start that. So if we might go to Mr. Vasquez's item 6 now, if it aligns with staff's labor break, that would be helpful.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Good, I'm fine with that. Are the members okay with that?
Yes, Chair Gaines, we just approved the invitation to the annual meeting of the board and the county assessors. I want to encourage the county assessors to attend. You know, there is a certain amount that don't get here for whatever reasons. I would hope that their cost of attendance would be approved by the state, and they'd be encouraged to bring their spouse or wife with them and, you know, make it a very important thing, because I look forward to meeting with them there, and I'm confused sometimes when sometimes 10% or more aren't able to make it. I would hope we could get a better turnout this year. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think haven't we had decent attendance on that?
We have.
I'm just curious, do we know what the attendance has been, like percentage-wise? Very good. Executive Director Stowers, thank you.
Thank you. We've had very good attendance for the annual meeting. The last one was here, and I do believe we had maybe 40 assessors in person, and balance was they zoomed in.
Yeah.
For your district, your assessors come out full steam. Same thing with, sorry, District 2. They participate and they look forward to it.
Yeah.
And they really enjoy the open sessions that we have, and then your breakouts with them, the one-on-one.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Please.
And I noticed you scheduled, now it's going to happen in October, right?
Yes.
Which is, we have the big powwow in South Tahoe, what is it, in August? So that's always helps in terms of
That's another
just
opportunity.
reconnecting
That's
and,
right.
and getting outreach to them and reminding them.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
some of us have one assessor for breakout session. Mr. Vasquez, I have
Mine's
5.
100%. I always have 100% attendance.
Ted, you've got a couple of dozen, don't you?
We get good attendance, and Member Lieber does too. I think we get pretty good participation, and thank you for highlighting it.
Mr. Chair, just in the interest of time,
Yes,
I
please.
think we should.
Okay, let's move forward. We're going to item 6, is that right? Okay.
We're actually going to take a recess and take lunch, and then.
No, I think we're going to item 6 now.
We believe we could get item 6 in and then
Okay.
still get our hour lunch before Ms.
You're
Lieber's
okay,
item
Controller
begins
Cohen?
later.
I'm going to have to excuse myself, but I am glad
Okay.
that board member matters, the update on the incentivizing the affordable housing development through property tax exemptions. That conversation is continuing. It started when I was a member and under my leadership. So it's important. I hope that there's some resolution or something concrete that we are not just talking about it, but we are going to put some action and do some things about it. And then I regret that I'm going to miss item 7, the informational hearing, an update on the wildfire disaster relief. That's important too
Yes.
for our state and
yeah.
hearing how we are recovering, what we're doing for taxpayers. And then also, I hope, Chair, that you will be bringing some kind of a framework about the Ledge Committee proposal to next month's meeting. I hope
Okay.
to see that next
Yes.
month. All
Very
right,
good.
thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Very good.
It's a pleasure
Thank
to
you.
serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Controller Cohen. We appreciate your participation. And we're now going to move forward on item number 6. This is Board Member Matters. It's an update on incentivizing affordable housing development through property tax exemption, and Member Vasquez is presenting this item. So let's, why don't we move forward with that? And thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you all, members, for making the time for this item today. The board has worked diligently on the issue of affordable housing in recent years, including numerous work groups, meetings, and informational hearings. And as we move forward, but the problem persists. And to some extent, I think we've actually lost ground. According to the Turner Center Housing Innovation brief released this month on property tax exemptions to facilitate affordable housing, lessons from California, there's been insufficient new construction. The current needs of the states are about 2 million units at the end of 2023. The state had about 700,000 units total. A little over 110,000 units were constructed by the end of 2024. Unfortunately, we lost some ground since 2020. Over 40,000 units per year, which is about 160,000 total, that were affordable housings are now unaffordable. And this isn't even mentioning the units that we lost during the fire. In terms of solutions, there's a lot happening at the state level, some of which involves the board. The Turner Center brief linked to my memo documents the need to streamline the procedure and increase the board's involvement as a liaison to the administering the property tax exemption in a way that incentivizes new construction and preserves existing affordable housing. The Turner Center found that time delays, including those involving property tax exemptions, are a problem. A 4-month delay can add almost $20,000 per unit in cost. They have 5 recommended changes to the welfare exemption that could make it work more efficiently and still protect the physical benefit to the public. Also mentioned is the governor's proposal to reorganize the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency into 2 agencies in order to split off the new entity called the California Housing and Homeless Agency. The goal is to create a one-stop shop to bring together all entities and streamline affordable housing. The Little Hoover Commission will meet this week on May 29th to render its decision and recommendations to the governor and the legislature. I believe it is incumbent on the members to consider, one, the recommendations made in the Turner Center brief, and two, identifying ways to assist the governor and the legislature in reaching the one-stop shop goal, including property tax exemptions, initiatives, and proposals. Because the board is responsible for the administration of welfare exemption and overseeing the county assessors, we are at the right state level body to oversee this aspects of the affordable housing development process. I believe that this needs our full attention at a future board meeting, both to discuss and the recommendations in the brief to determine how to provide assistance to the governor and the legislature in establishing this one-stop shop. With that, I will turn it back over to the members and see if they have any comments or questions. And actually, I was listening to the closing remarks of our controller. She was hoping that we could figure out a way to move this, forward. I think hopefully she can get involved with this a little bit, her with the treasurers, because I think one of the problems we have is that we're part of the problem up in the government. We're just putting these folks to so many hoops, which, time, like they said, time is money. Every time we delay a process, if somehow we could merge those processes into this one-stop shop, I think would be huge.
Absolutely. Members, do we have comments or questions that you'd like to bring up on this issue? Yes, Vice Chair Lieber.
Well, I'd just like to thank Mr. Vasquez for bringing this forward, and I would appreciate at some point potentially getting a presentation from the Turner Center, because I've noticed there are movements around this space, and they're very thoughtful, and potentially it would lead in the next year to something where the legislature would consider a demonstration project or a series of demonstration projects that are, as you suggested in your memo, really focused on low-income and extremely low-income housing need within California. And while I think that many of our assessors and our county supervisors are concerned about anything that looks like an exemption, and we had back about a year and a half ago, one of the examples being brought forward of a project in Marin that was very posh looking, but yet it was affordable housing. But it was not focused on the low income and the extremely low income. It was more focused on the missing middle. And so I'd like to see if we could get more information from Turner Center and maybe get consideration of a limited series of demonstration projects in certain targeted counties. And I actually think that LA County would be a great one for that. So we could consider that as the year develops. Thank you.
Great. Other comments? Member Schaefer.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gaines. I read the Turner Center brief, and I've been a landlord for a number of years, and I found a number of things in here that I think are sort of fantasy. Here we require the owner to collect signed statements from tenants and provide information to the assessors as to what the income is in each household. Well, first of all, you go to talk to your tenant and they're out working, they're not home, or the wife's there and everything's handled by the husband. And you're gonna find a lot of people who are not gonna give you their social security number. They're not gonna tell you how much money they make. They may think you're related to the tax authorities. The information they give you will either be nothing or it may be not creditable. And so we get uncredible information and we're giving it to the assessor who treats it as credible. I just really am confused that we can be so optimistic. And then another issue is that we can provide up to 40 years of exemptions. That's what they do in New York. And before a developer can even buy a property, they've got to know what the tenant incomes are. I can't imagine if I'm interested in buying Blackacre with the apartment house on it, but I'm just a stranger. I'm a prospective buyer. Do I go around and knock on doors and ask tenants how much they make? I'm probably going to get a can of beer thrown at me, you know, if I'm lucky, and a shotgun if I'm not. I think this is an excursion to Fantasy Island in many respects, and comes from my experience. And we really can't live with fantasy that we have a deed restriction or a requirement that is put on, and then maybe the property sold 5 years later to somebody else who ignores the restrictions and charges higher rents. There's nobody auditing that. Government doesn't have enough employees to go out and audit apartment houses to see that the 2025 owner is dealing with the 2010 restrictions like he or she should. I know I lived in an apartment house in San Diego where the law says you got to have 1.5 parking places for a 2-bedroom apartment. And I had a 2-bedroom apartment, and I tried to rent a second parking space. And I find out that the owner is right across the street from a hospital, and they're renting most of the parking spaces to doctor's offices for $100 a month, and they can't charge tenants that, so they forget the tenants and rent them out. And I raised the question. I said, aren't you supposed to have these parking places for your tenants? That's part of the city council approving the building. And his answer was twofold. They're not enforcing it anymore, and we'll give you $6,000 if you'll move. I took the $6,000 and moved. But I just really think that there's all of this machinations that we're doing as government, setting up restrictions and whatnot. I think if we took a look at it 5 or 10 years later, we're going to find there's an awful lot of non-enforcement, and there's really nothing gets done about it, or nothing that can be done about it. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just sharing with you my experience of the real world, okay? Thank you.
All right, Vice Chair Lieber.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Schaefer is shining a very bright light on some of the differences that come up with privately owned properties versus the large 501c3 affordable housing organizations that buy property or are gifted property for low income and extremely low income. And they do have a relationship with getting that information from the tenants, as the tenants are income qualified to get the apartment and then to continue to keep the apartment. And there are some mechanisms, like whether or not the person continues to maintain a Section 8 voucher and other tools that are present there. And I think that those indicators, as Mr. Schaefer is pointing out, could definitely be something that would be part of a narrow bill for a demonstration project in some ways, to look at some streamlining that could get more housing actually open. And we had our eye on a tenant in common affordable housing bill that was making its way through the legislature. And those sorts of arrangements are a mix of the private and using the mechanism of a TIC. And that private ownership was where it got kind of gummy. And so what I think I would most value is looking at what kind of opportunities we could create for the dedicated nonprofit community to be able to more quickly get through the process and provide housing. And we know that the price of housing is really what's one of the main drivers that is leading to people leaving California. And in many cases, those individuals are service workers that we need to have in our communities. And so I'd be very interested in how we make things a little bit more rational to get through for these entities. Thank you.
Great, wonderful. Yeah, I'd like to just make a couple of comments in terms of housing affordability in the state of California. And I read a book by someone from the progressive left entitled Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. And he addresses this issue and he speaks to it specifically in the state of California. And I thought it was interesting because he, again, is focused on process, right? What is wrong with the process so that we can't reach the goals that we want to reach in terms of providing affordable housing for people in California? And he gave two examples in the book, and one was in San Francisco, and I wish I remembered the name of the project, but what it did is it used modular construction of these apartments and then brought them in. It was used with union labor, just as a matter of fact, because I know those are important matters, especially in cities. And they were able to, the goal was to build the units at $400,000 per unit, and they were able to do that, which blows me away. And then he cited examples in Southern California where the cost per unit is double. And he talked a lot about the process, about how difficult it is for both the nonprofit and the private sector to build because of so many layers of requirements that add on to cost and also slow a project down. He was talking about affordable housing advocates trying to raise the money. How do you get the capital to build these units? And sometimes they're communicating with 10 different sources for the funding. And so through the negotiation process, you're also dealing with the public, which doesn't want it or wants it in a different configuration. And then that could change the type of housing you actually build. And then when the type of housing actually builds to try to satisfy the community, then the funding falls away. So now you have to find new funding mechanisms. And there's just got to be a better way where this process can be streamlined so that we can actually get the units done. And he also makes a comparison to the number of homes that were built. It was a different era, right after World War II. But he talks about 8 million homes being built across America. And I can't remember if it was a specific year or years in the 1950s, but we're not making the mark now. And certainly we have more regulation, and it's good to have that balance in terms of how you build, but there's got to be a more efficient way in terms of how we actually get the units on the ground. And so I applaud Member Vasquez for focusing on this and figuring out how we attack it better. So.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, and no, I think we should explore that possibility of internally, because I know there's several projects, pilots out there. I know LA is really looking at some issues. The mayor and the county are trying to merge this whole homeless issue that they've been really struggling with. And I'm glad to see the governor is finally looking at this one-stop shop, because I constantly hear from folks, at least down in Southern California, that we're part of the problem. We're just putting these folks in so many hoops. By the time the project gets done, it's the funding, because of the interest they're sitting on, just doubles the cost of the construction.
Yes. Yeah,
So
I think-
hopefully we can figure out a way to join, or at least combine
Yes.
some of these
Yeah, former Mayor
processes.
Ragosa has been talking a lot
Right.
about these issues. I know in LA specifically. Okay, I think, any other comments by the board members? Okay, we do have someone that would like to make a public comment. This is on item number 6. And Jason Vallejos with Syndicated Insurance. I'm not sure if he's here publicly. Yeah, here he is. Very well. It is Jason, is that correct?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
actually quick public comment on affordable housing.
Yes.
Not only are we having challenges with affordable housing, right? There's also challenges with affordable insurance, both in commercial and residential. So I would like this to be a continuance for I believe we're going to have some discussion on the wildfires and
That's right.
things, but I think a lot of times we're seeing money available for housing, even though it's very unaffordable in California. Then comes the underwriting for insurance.
Right.
And we have to have some collaboration between affordable housing and the insurance commissioner as well,
Yes,
just to make sure that we have some successful outcomes with these type of projects.
right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
if you can buy the home and can't afford the insurance, we got a problem.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of that with
Yes,
small mortgages and big insurance premiums.
yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, members, any other comments? Do you want to close? Member Vasquez?
Just wanted to thank you all for sharing some of your thoughts and ideas, and just hope that we could continue to follow up on this, and definitely open to suggestions. And I know Vice Chair already recommended one, to possibly get the Turner Group to come out and do a follow-up on this, which I think would be advantageous. And just, I guess maybe more of a question too for some staff too. I know as they monitor bills, to kind of keep an eye on this whole one-stop shop that the governor's proposing.
Good.
Thank
That's
you.
great. And before we conclude, I do want to just open this up and go to the AT&T moderator. And please let us know if anyone's on the telephone that would like to make a public comment regarding this item on the agenda.
Thank you. If you'd like to make a public comment, please press 1 then 0. And there's no one in queue at this time.
No one at this time, is that correct? Very good. All right.
That
thank
is
you.
correct.
Yeah, thank you, moderator. Members, we're going to take a 60-minute break. It is 12:22, so we'll return at 1:22. I'm going by my watch because that clock is off there. All right. Thank you.